We got us a good old classic Hayman job that just showed up to the shop today. We got a piece of tubing that we're going to machine for some bushings and this pin to go in. And I'm doing this for my buddy Joe down at D&D Welding. This is going into a garbage truck. It's one of those type of garbage trucks that has the grapple arm that comes down and grabs the trash can and lifts it up and dumps it. And it's the knuckle. So if you've got it's one of the pivot points there is where this is going to be welded in. If you look at my finger here, if you imagine these two arms right there and where it connects in the center, where it pivots, that's where this is going to be welded in. And if you look at this piece of tubing, this is just kind of representing what it is, how it's going to be going together there. He said the piece of tubing is 4x8, so it's a lot bigger than this. And it'll have a hole. Each side will have a hole drilled in it right there. And, you know, so this will be slipped over, or the tube will be slipped into this piece of tubing about a ½ inch from the end and then welded there. So, you know, you'll have one right there. You'll have one right there. All right. And then, so what I need to do is go ahead and machine the bore for clearance for the pin. We got a 2-inch pin right here. This is the actual pin that goes into the part. All right. That's the pin. So we'll bore it, say, you know, 2 1/16 because it just needs to have clearance. And then on each end, we're going to do a counter bore for this style of bushing right here. This is what they provided that will be used. So this should be a nominal size of 2 1/4 on the OD. And then so we'll bore that for a little interference fit where this is going to press in on each side. And then we'll go in each end and drill and tap for a grease dirt to come in here and grease this bushing right there. And it's not going to line up with this groove right here, but we're just going to copy the original design from the manufacturer. They come in 1 3/4 from the end right here, and that's where they have their grease circuit. It's still going to come through into the bushing, but if you move the grease hole a little too further out, you're going to be coming out here in the opening. But there's also, you know, wall that tubing that's going to be welded right in here as well. Okay, but they'll be able to stick. The grease circ will be like inside here, so they just stick their grease gun right in there and be able to grease the grease circ. All right, so it's going to be a nice lathe project. We'll go to the Monarch. We'll probably go ahead and do a couple undercuts on the OD just so that we have a good spot for our steady rest to run when we're doing our bore and facing the ends. All right, so let's go to the lathe and get set up and get started on it. All right, this is another good example of why I invested in a skyhook to use on the lathes for picking up work pieces that aren't necessarily really heavy, but they're heavy enough that they put strain on your back whenever you're trying to hold them and install them in the chuck right here. I mean, I could easily pick this up and put it in there. I've done it probably thousands of times for work pieces, but I mean, let's face it, I'm getting older and I've never had a great back anyway, so anytime I can use something like this, any type of crane, to hold a piece of material to install it in the truck, you're going to be helping yourself and you're going to be helping your back whenever you do it. So I weighed this on the scale. It weighs exactly 45 pounds. So, you know, picking up like this in your power zone and moving it to a table is one thing, but picking up here on the lathe and then bending over to install in the chuck puts a little bit more strain on your lower back muscles there. So we'll just use the sky hook here to stick it in the forejaw. Watch out for the mouse trap, it gets your fingers. Just gonna try to just center it where it's kind of level here. That's pretty good. I've got my chuck pretty well preset. It's 4-inch OD if I didn't mention it before. Just like that. Just bring it in. Just like so. Go a little bit more. I have the top and then the chuck in front of me brought out one more full turn on the screw here just so that I got room for it to go in. And I'll let off a little bit just so it can help center in the chuck jaw. And this will be good enough so we can start indicating it in. That right there makes my back feel so much better right off the bat than having to pick this up and stick it in there, hold it with this arm while you tighten the chuck jaws. I just like it so much better. We're going to use standard 4-jaw indicating methods here, just like I've shown before. We're going to use our dial indicator, and what we'll be doing is indicating here and here. Get it indicated there with the chuck jaws, get it running true, move it down here, bump it around with our hammer on this side so that this piece is not doing this, but running nice and concentric all the way down the length right there. All right, I'm just going to use the 1 dial indicator. And before I even worry about this, I'm looking at see how straight it is. Even though we know we're running out this way, I still want it kind of straight instead of it kicked up at an angle one way or the other. Instead of it doing this, we want it to kind of do like this in an even concentric. All right, so we've got about 1/8 of an inch to move it. I'm going to start with the high just to make sure that that side is snug like that, and then we'll come back around to our low side, loosen it, and just lightly snug it up. You don't want it too tight right now. Now we're going to go to that one. Now that one's our high. Snug that one, bring it around to our low, loosen it, snug it, loosen the low, tighten the high. Now that's the low, loosen the low, tighten the high. Just keep doing that. You just want to keep following the lows and the high points because it's going to keep moving between the 2 jaws there as you get it moved over some. And we will get this close within a couple of thousandths on both ends anyway. All right, because we're going to have to come back and do this side after we bump this side around. It's going to throw this off just a little bit. We're just about where we want to be right there. That one's low. All right, so that one's within a few thou right there. That looks like a high spot, so just snugging it a little bit. Those are getting pretty tight. So that's close enough there. And what I'll do, you can use 2 indicators if you want to. I have a lot of people that say, hey, why not just put another indicator there? You can certainly do that. I just like using the 1 indicator, okay? It's just a habit of mine. If it saves you a few extra seconds and it makes you feel better, then go right ahead and use 2. But all I'm going to do is just loosen it up with the mag base and simply stick it right here, just anywhere towards the end. And let's see if you can see that. Yep, y'all can see that. So you can see we're out about the same amount. Well, about 100 thousandths. So let me get my soft blow. And I'm just going to use this guy right here. My buddy Chuck made this for me. It's aluminum body with lead mounted in the ends right there. So you want to look for your high, and that's going to be your high. And I'm just kind of following as this needle is moving around to a high. I'm visually picking a spot on the OD, and as I roll it back, I'm just watching that spot. And I'm going to come in here, and I like to feel it with my left hand. Just give it a bump, just like that. And I felt it move. There's your low, there's your high. So we moved it a little bit. Just kind of follow your high spot there. Low, high. And when I'm doing this and not filming it, you know, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to explain how my mind is working through this job and relay it to you, the viewer, that you're, you know, as you're watching it. And then some people say, hey, why don't you just put a center in the end of that, because that'll hold that true while you indicate this. You can certainly try to do that as well, but you're not going to get that straight just by holding something in the center here. It's still, those 4 jaws are going to try to kick this one way or the other. You're going to be putting tension on the center right there. And the other thing to keep in mind is that you're not necessarily, this hole is not running true with the OD. So that may get you close, but then when you get through indicating this is still going to be running out. We want to start with the OD. That's what we want to true up right there, not the ID. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing, going back and forth until I get this running nice and concentric and straight. And then once we get at that point, we will go ahead and skin us a couple spots on this OD, which is perfectly acceptable for this job. just machine a couple spots in here on the OD, and we know that those two spots will be running true with each other. So when I finish one end, we can flip this part around and I can machine this in, and we'll have our true spots there that we can line up on. Okay, a little update from where we were just at. So this piece of tubing is not perfectly straight. So even though I keep getting it indicated straight here, once you come out here, you're still running out almost 50 thousandths. So I can't move it anymore this way because it binds up here on your chuck jaw. So the way to correct that is that we actually need to pull it out of these jaws a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up, and we're going to pull it out about half the length of what this jaw is holding there. And then that will allow me to be able to bump this thing around and get it running true the way it needs to be. I'm just going to use my arm. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier with the sky hook there. But I'm just going to move this out. I'm going to pull it out about halfway, just visually about halfway. And I'm just using my right hand to kind of square it up as I snug that jaw up. Do the same thing with that. I'm kind of pulling it front to back, and it's squaring up flat against the serrations there. All right, so now that will allow me to get this piece running true. All right, so we're going to re-indicate it now. Now let's see if we can get this in to move around where we want it. Too far, see, but it's gonna let me line it up now. Okay, high. All right, we've got the piece running true the way it needs to be. We've got it running true here and here, and in the middle you can see it running out a little bit in the middle because we've got a piece of tubing that's sort of snake shaped, got a little bit of a warpage to it. So that's going to work right there. We're going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is just very gently machine a chamfer right here on this corner, a little bit of a bevel. We just want a true spot that we can come in here with a bell center to support the end, and then we will come out here and machine us a couple spots there for our steady rest to ride on. Just using a 60-degree brazed on tool bit there just to try to machine. We're not going to come in here and hit it hard. Just barely feeding it in with the cross slide. And so we've got a machine surface all the way around now. So we can stick our bell center in here, and it's not going to throw this off because this is a crooked face right there. We'll go ahead and support it here, and I'll turn the OD. We're going to use a CNMG insert. It's the MCHNN tool, and you can see I've got two places marked. This is what we're going to just undercut till it trues it up. That's where we will set our steady rest right there. Okay, so let's get going on it. The yellow paint mark just gives me a visual reference. That's about 1.25 inches wide is what it is. The pad on the steady rest is 1 inch wide. And I'm gonna make it the same length. So what I'm doing is I'm setting a 0 on my cross dial where I touched off right there. And I'm gonna feed it in until it cleans it up. And that's only 10 thousandths. Let's just go another 5. That's 15. I'm gonna reset the 0 on my collar here. Let's make our cut. I could have fed that speed up, but we'll just go ahead and finish out that cut anyway. That's 5 thousandths feed rate. And I'm just going to watch that cut come over to that little paint mark there on that side. And you can just stick your scale up here to verify. That looks like 1.25 right there. So we'll stop our cut, back out, and then we're just going to go ahead and run down to this one, do the same exact thing. Line up on that yellow mark there. I'm going to watch my dial. It should come in right by 0. There's our 0. And then we'll make this cut. And that diameter should be, I'd say, well within 2/1000ths of being the same size. So we shouldn't be having to adjust our steady rest any once we take the piece out and flip it around. But what I'm seeing here, you might be able to see this little black spot coming around. Looks like a little shadow. That's a low spot, so we may need to recut this, and if we do, we'll clean this up and then move back down to the right end and then clean that one up to match it. We'll get this one cut and we'll find out. That's good right about there. So let's see what we got. Yeah, we need to go ahead and clean that up again, because you can see we didn't quite get it all cleaned up right there. The other side's got a few little spots in it, so we'll just make another cut right here, zero out our dial, come down to the other side, and finish that side to match this one here. We'll just go ahead and verify our diameters to see how close we got them there. That is 979, 3.979. And check this one. 0.5 thousandths difference, 979.5. So it's on the same size right there. All right, so now we'll go ahead and get our steady rest set up for this journal right here. So we're going to use the sky hook again to set the steady rest. Another great example of me trying to save my lower back muscles here, okay? So it's not that it's that heavy, it's just, it's a little awkward to handle. We're going to use this little strap right here. Watch the fingers in the mouse trap. And I'm going to have to kind of hold it out because the handle of the tailstock, I got this all the way in right here. But it's not going to take a whole lot. Bring it up clear just like that. Swing it right on around. Now we can just crank the carriage back some. Bring it in here. I've already cleaned this and wiped it off so that we don't have any chips that's going to get underneath it right there. And just very gently lower it down without straining your back muscles. Look at that. Simple and easy. And then we'll just slide this up into place. I've got to move the jaws out so that we can fit it up in there. All right, just get it lined up sort of in the middle right there. Go ahead and tighten our bottom clamp up. All right, I'm going to turn it on. Let me go ahead and reduce the speed here. And I want to come in until I just feel those brass fingers, those brass pads touch it. That's all I want to do is just touch it. Just touching right there, so I'm going to come around here. I'm not going to reach over the top. I'm going to come around this way. I'm going to run this in. I'm kind of looking at it, and then I'm not even going to look at it now. I'm just going to run this in with my hand, kind of like a micrometer. I just felt it touch right there. I can feel it transferring through that, and now it's touching. We're going to leave it right there. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to snug these two set screws right here, and now our two bottom fingers are locked into place. You can close in the top one, and I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on that because it's going to cause some heat, friction, and make it expand just a little bit. But what I'll do is I'll take my oil can and squirt some whey oil in there so it has some lubricity in there to run on. Okay, so go ahead and turn it back on. Run the top one down, same thing, just till I feel it touch. Right there, I feel it touching, I can feel it transferring through the casting into that handle. I'm gonna leave it there, and I've got this is just whey oil that I'm keeping this can, and I'm gonna squirt a little bit up in there, and I'll continue to keep it lubricated as we're doing our machining there. So now we're ready to do our face cut and start doing our bores. We're ready to start making our face cut on this. Now, as far as the length goes, Joe said he's got this cut where it needs to be, but I do have some room there to clean it up because the tolerance is loose enough that if you take a few thou off each side, it's not going to matter. He said just don't take more than a 1/16 of an inch. Well, I don't think we need to take a 1/16. So let's just clean the ends up, okay? We'll see how crooked it is, and it looks like we may end up taking maybe about 30 thousandths off each end. All right, so I'm going to set a dial indicator over here, and what I'm going to be using is my new roto dial. These guys make these things right here in America, and this mag base right here is actually, you can adjust it. That's the beauty of the roto dial. You got it stuck somewhere, you can actually turn this, and we have another version of this that actually be mounted on a dial indicator, an indicator base there as well. Okay, they supply it with the Fowler indicator, and it works pretty good. So I'm just going to wipe the dust off, put that on the ways, and just line it up right there, and we'll go ahead and turn our dial to 0. Let's dial in 30 thousandths and make a cut. Make sure I got my feed the right direction, and we do. Okay, it looks like that's going to clean it up good. And I'm down here looking at this other face as well, and it looks like it's more true than this face here, so we shouldn't have to take another 30 to clean off the other end.